Hello, this is Daryl here, and I have two things to tell you before the Total Soccer Show music plays. First, I want to tell you about our other show, the Top Draw Soccer Show. This is a show we run in conjunction with TopDrawSoccer.com. We talk youth soccer, we talk development, we look at the underbelly of American soccer. There's a recent episode from last week in which Travis Clark from Top Draw Soccer and our very own Taylor Rockwell go deep on development academies. So all about development academies. Top Draw Soccer comes out every Wednesday. I really encourage you to go find it in iTunes or Stitcher or however else you listen. Second thing I want to tell you is that today's show is sponsored by Health IQ, an insurance company that helps health-conscious people get lower rates on their life insurance. Go to healthiq.com/TSS to support the show and to see if you qualify. Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who has not put in a transfer request that I know of. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello, not trying to force my way out just yet. We'll see what happens. There's a couple of days left in the window.
Your head has not been turned.
It has not. There's 1 day left in the window. It might be turned. We'll see.
So yeah, it's not quite transfer deadline day. It's transfer deadline day eve. National holiday in England.
Yep, put your cookies out. See if Olivier Giroud picks them up.
So we expect a bunch of crazy stuff to happen tomorrow on the actual transfer deadline day. We'll get to that when it happens. But there's all kinds of interesting news that we basically didn't get to over the last week because we're in Philly. We did one transfer show in Philly. Then we had the US-Bosnia, I'm going to call it a soccer game, to talk about yesterday. So this is a big roundup of all the news that we may have missed in the last few days.
Occurrence? The USA-Bosnia occurrence.
The USA-Bosnia occurrence. Where would you like to start, Taylor, with all the sort of moves and nearly moves that are on the list?
I think we're going to go with nearly moves to start because as of time of recording, we checked literally seconds before you hit record to make sure.
That's how you know we're veteran podcasters.
Yeah, exactly. It is still a nearly move, the Aubameyang, Batshuayi, Giroud merry-go-round, so to speak.
Absolutely. Okay, I'll explain to you. You tell me if I got this right.
Sure.
All right. Aubameyang wants out at Dortmund.
Yes.
He has settled on Arsenal.
Yes.
Arsenal want to buy him.
Yes.
Right? But Dortmund need a replacement striker. They did want Olivier Giroud from Arsenal. Giroud didn't seem so keen on going to Dortmund.
Right.
So it looks like what's going to happen is Giroud is going to go to Chelsea, who want a backup/competition figure for Morata.
Yep.
Right? And then Batshuayi will go from Chelsea to Dortmund, and then theoretically everybody's happy.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
I think Batshuayi may be undecided, although it probably means he's guaranteed a starting spot, at least to begin with.
Yeah.
So he's probably happy.
Yeah, because Dortmund really won't have a recognised centre-forward, apart from Isak, I believe, who's a teenager that they bought recently.
Yes, so that's probably not going to get it done. So maybe that makes Batshuayi happy. Aubameyang gets a move to
Arsenal.
A new club. And in Arsenal, it's a club that I think suits his style of play. So I think that
Can we
will
talk
work.
about that? I think that's an interesting thing, right? So a lot of people talk about where they rate Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. My personal feeling is the way Arsenal play, if they are sort of, putting balls in the box in front of him, he is great at finding those tiny little angles and like dart into the far post or near post and finishing from those tight angles. I really think Aubameyang could be, he could score a lot of goals for Arsenal.
Yeah, I think it's because it's all about patience when you do that. It's all about knowing I don't need to make that run too soon or I don't need to wait and then never make that run. He seems very adept at knowing exactly when to pounce on that cross.
Yes,
like just as it's being delivered, he's in there.
All right, so we think the Aubameyang to Arsenal transfer works out. The one weird part is they already bought Lacazette.
Yep.
And it seemed to me, and the report at the time was that essentially Aubameyang seemed overpriced last summer. And Lacazette was sort of the budget option that Arsene Wenger settled on. I'm sure Arsenal fans were frustrated at the time and feel the same now because they're going back for the full price guy.
Yeah. I did enjoy Granit Xhaka, Z-A-K-A on Twitter.
Oh, not Granit Xhaka?
No. Granit Xhaka on Twitter wrote, a front three of Aymeric, Mkhitaryan, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and Alexandre Lacazette contains the most letters of any forward line in the club's history. Wenger is clearly, this is my favorite part, Wenger is clearly making the big name signings that all the fans have wanted.
Boom.
That's great stuff. That's great stuff right there. Yes.
Tip your waiters.
So, yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like they are trying to maybe make some fans happy. I think the fans were justifiably frustrated.
Yep.
It seems like maybe they're still going to be frustrated after today's results when Arsenal lost 3-1 to Swansea.
So that was Giroud's goodbye, right? I only saw the highlights. I did see Giroud waving goodbye to Arsenal fans after, Arsenal lost, 3-1 in the rain to Swansea.
Yeah.
That's a weird end to his Arsenal tenure.
And so earlier you said everyone is happy with a question mark on the end, and I would say Giroud is maybe the only person who comes out of this not so thrilled.
Yeah.
Now, the speculation we talked a little bit about was that maybe his wife didn't want that move to Dortmund.
Yeah, so I'd heard this on... There's a great podcast. I'm happy to recommend other podcasts, especially stuff we don't cover. It's a BBC podcast called... I think it's called EuroLeagues Football. And it's kind of like the On the Continent show, where it's a big roundup of what's happening in... non-Premier League European leagues, right?
BBC EuroLeague football show is what I wrote down on my notepad from when you told me about it earlier.
That's what it's called. And it's like Rafa Honigstein, a lot of the experts, right? I've forgotten the people's names. Julien Laurent.
We had Rafa on the show like 8 years ago, so friend of the show? Sure, why not?
James Horncastle for Italy, And essentially, I can't remember which one of them said this, but essentially the idea was that Olivier Giroud's wife wants to live in a big city. Olivier Giroud doesn't want to make his wife unhappy, which I think is a perfectly fair thing for any professional to take into account. And she didn't want to move to Everton. For one thing. Well, Everton, not the city of Everton, the city of Liverpool where Everton are. That's one of the reasons apparently that Giroud did not go to Everton, because Liverpool's not sort of a mega city in the way that London is.
Right.
And maybe the same for Dortmund.
Yeah, so that limits the options then. So then Chelsea becomes that much more desirable because you don't even have to move. You can live in the same city, but it also
even
means...
a fancier part of the city. Chelsea's like West London, whereas Arsenal's a bit more North London.
Assuming he moves.
Yes.
I mean, or we don't even know where he lives.
Oh, you mean he might not move house?
Yeah, you never know. He can drive a little bit longer. That's fine. But this being a World Cup year, it is still surprising, though, that he's basically moving to a club where, as you said, he's moving because they wanted a backup. If they didn't want a backup, I would have expected Chelsea to try to hijack the Aubameyang move, since they're the ones who are going to be loaning Batshuayi to Dortmund. I feel like if they were like 60 million plus Batshuayi and you give us Aubameyang, I feel like that move would have gone through. So maybe it is because, as you said, they want to give a little bit more faith to Alvaro Morata, so they're bringing in a backup. But if you're Olivier Giroud, you're not really having that big of a change. I don't
think you've progressed in terms of how first choice you are, unless things go wrong for Morata. Unless Giroud has some secret plan
or continue to go wrong, as I would say. Yeah. And again, they did want a big target striker. I think he can do that job for them. So it may end up being a good move.
The job is essentially either score goals or knock the ball down for Eden Hazard, right? Yes. Which is what Morata has done semi-successfully, and I think it's what Giroud is perfectly capable of doing. I'm a big fan of Olivier Giroud's game. I think he's a really impressive player. I personally would have preferred to see him somewhere where he starts every week, so we see the best of him.
Agreed. Crystal Palace could have brought him in. Could have stayed in London. Wouldn't have been a problem. The other thing that I hadn't thought about, because I was still uncertain about how fully I believed in that Aubameyang transfer in terms of how effective it will be. One little tiny thing that I do think is kind of important is that he and Mkhitaryan have played together before at Borussia Dortmund.
That's true.
So they have that kind of existing relationship. So suddenly it's two new players coming into a new club, but they know each other. I imagine that kind of eases the transition just a little bit.
Yeah, maybe they get Mario Götze next.
Yeah, sure, why not? Or Christian Pulisic.
One other weird thing I heard that might be involved in this move is David Luiz this is only a rumour, David Luiz to Arsenal, which may be part of that Giroud move. It may be a bit of a swap or swap plus money thing, Giroud for Luiz.
That's possible, although given what happened to Arsenal against Swansea, I think if you're Chelsea...
Arsenal say we'll throw Mustafi in as well.
Yeah, well, I think if you're Chelsea, you're going to hold out for more money. I don't think you're going to get a straight swap out of that one.
We want more money, less Mustafi.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the initial fee for Giroud was rumored to be like 20 million, and now it's dropped to 17 or 18 million because Chelsea negotiated their way down. So maybe it will be the case that Arsenal then say, how about you don't pay us anything and we give you a little bit of money and we make this work?
Should we go on to some moves that have actually happened?
Sure.
How about the weirdest one, without a doubt, of the last few days? Miche Diskerud signing for Manchester City for 4.5 years.
Yeah.
Miche Diskerud signing for Manchester City.
An integral part of that team.
So the question for me is, does he displace Kevin De Bruyne or David Silva or both?
Probably both, I think. City probably just play 10 men, I think, with Miche Diskerud in there. And we're being... joking, of course. But it is, I guess, good for him because it didn't seem like his sojourn to Scandinavia was working out too well.
Gothenburg.
And then obviously the situation with NYCFC was not great.
Well, here's what I understand about this deal, right? We'll get into the Umbro element in a minute. Actually, let's get into it now.
Sure.
The weird thing about this deal, the reason it got everyone's attention...
Well, first of all, if you don't know who Miche Diskerud is, maybe
he used to play for the US men's national team.
Yes.
Then he signed for NYCFC in Major League Soccer. And then, last year... NYCFC bought him out of his contract.
Yep.
Right? So he was essentially contracted to MLS, but he wasn't on NYCFC's roster, which is a weird thing. He was loaned to Gothenburg, right? So he comes back to America, and then suddenly he signs a 4.5-year deal with Manchester City Football Club. With all due respect to Miche Diskerud, who is not a bad player, but he is not a Manchester City level player. It's not a realistic signing, right, in terms of him going into the first team. The weird part was the signing was him with Umbro, and it was announced by Umbro. It has not been announced by Manchester City. I did a thing before we recorded today. I went to Manchester City's website, searched for Diskerud, search for Miche Diskerud and a couple of variations. There is no story. Manchester City have not done an official signing announcement. It's as if it never happened, which is a really, really odd part of this, I think.
So is there a chance that it hasn't actually happened and that this is still something that like a week from now we're not going to have any conclusion with?
I think it has actually happened, but they're immediately going to loan him somewhere more suitable. I honestly don't know. Maybe the Belgian league or the Dutch league or something like that. And then maybe eventually they sell him on and essentially Manchester City just make a profit. Because part of financial fair play is you've got to get income through the doors, right? And if you can get a player for free who maybe has some numerical value, then a couple of years later you can sell him to a team. I feel like they'll loan, like it'll be like a try to buy type thing. They'll loan him out, and then maybe a Dutch team will be like, yeah, we'll pay 2 million euros for this guy. Then Manchester City have essentially just made 2 million euros, and they can add that to the ledger of income.
And so with all that said, what I think this reminds me of is you don't hear about every 16, 17-year-old that joins the City Academy. You might hear about a few of the brightest ones that they've poached away from other clubs. But generally speaking, you're not going to hear about it because they have so many kids in that academy. I think Miche Diskerud is essentially on that level, that he's a kind of player they're bringing in. They're not really going to hype too much. They'll loan him out. Maybe they'll loan him out again. And then, yes, I think eventually they'll try to sell him.
There you go.
That's basically where we are.
Related.
Can I say before that, though, that what will be frustrating, because I know what you're about to go to, is when Major League Soccer start to like trumpet around that, we've had players move to these big clubs and these big clubs, and Miche Diskerud is going to be on that list of, we've had a player move to Man City. 2 players, actually. Miche Diskerud will be that other player.
So the other player that actually did go from New York City FC, he was on the roster, to Manchester City Football Club is young Englishman, England under-21 international, Jack Harrison.
Indeed.
So Jack Harrison has gone from NYCFC to Manchester City, and then immediately was loaned to Middlesbrough.
Yes.
This, I'm not so sure if it's the same type of deal or if it's just that maybe Harrison was a little homesick and this kind of worked out for him to sort of stay within the City Football Group family. Like, I think he could be a guy that they look at as maybe one day you could play for Man City, but more than likely this is like a low-end Chelsea player that we loan out and then we sell again. I mean, to bring some money in.
That's possible. I would say, though, for the player himself who said he wanted to get Premier League experience, it's always been a dream to play in the Premier League. It's a great move. I really do think it's a great move because
Middlesbrough are 8th in the Championship, right?
Yes,
not
I do.
in the Premier League.
But if he had gone to Stoke,
which was the other rumor,
yes, then you're going into like a relegation-threatened club with a new coach. You don't really know what to expect, and we've literally seen this before with other Americans going to Stoke. And they kind of are like on the sidelines. Maybe they get a couple minutes. That doesn't work. They get loaned out to another club. They go back to Stoke. Like, I just think in the end, it's still going to be Man City in charge of where he ends up, either with Man City or out on loan with other clubs. And I just think the fact that he is really immediately going on loan to Middlesbrough is better than staying with Stoke and maybe getting a couple minutes and getting some first-team training.
It's hectic, right? When it's a team that's sort of down the bottom of the league and, not just the wet wind United Stoke stuff, but just a club that's scrapping against relegation, that is not an ideal situation to join that team. You're better off with a team that's... So everyone knows 8th in the Championship is 2 spots outside the playoffs, so they're upwardly mobile, but they're not sort of right at the top. There's another team there.
Yeah. I know what you're trying to do there. And then I would say another positive to this one, Andrew Wiebe. I saw a tweet out today that City actually...
MLSsoccer.com's own.
City matched Stoke City's offer, which was apparently more than is being reported. I think right now the report is £4 million or £4 million. I can't remember which. But the rumor that Wiebe was going with is that it was closer to the MLS record, the Josie Altidore sale. So maybe higher up.
That was $10 million.
Exactly. So maybe like $8 million for Harrison is
interesting.
What the actual amount was.
And that's also, I know MLS will get
That's complete speculation, that 8, by the way. Just throwing it out there.
MLS will get a chunk of that, but this is essentially money going back and forth within City Football Group, right?
That's the part that's weird. Yeah. That's the part that's strange.
Modern soccer's going that way, right? There's the Red Bull teams, there's the City Football Group teams. You've got, is it Watford and Udinese connected? There's way more than that as well. There's a lot of teams that have got these odd links now.
I guess my question then
we should do a whole show about that one day.
I mean, it would be fascinating and also headache-inducing, I think, because I don't know this stuff. So don't look at me. I'm going to go with the Bill Burr route. Don't look at me as an expert here. I'm going to go.
Is that on your rider now? Don't look at me.
Yeah, sure. Don't look at me. Don't make eye contact. Obviously, no. I always appreciate when Bill Burr is like, "Look, I don't read." So before he gets into his theories, but I do wonder, like, is there that sort of shadiness that if an MLS club is owned by the same ownership group as, say, Manchester City, who have billions and billions and billions and billions and billions, repeating, of dollars, can they just get away with, like, oh, we'll sign this guy on a DP contract. If that doesn't work, well, we'll just sell him to the other team?
I think a little bit, yeah. It's like a catch-all kind of thing, yeah. It's a release valve for New York City FC. It's also, though, means that if you're an NYCFC fan, it comes with the other risk of your best players can get cherry-picked by Manchester City.
Yeah.
I mean, it always works both ways. When you're the junior partner, like Melbourne City will feel the same thing. When you're the junior partner, you're always going to lose your best player. Look, if they have the next Messi somehow, he's going to end up at Man City really fast.
Well, the next Messi is Messi, and he's going to Miami.
Okay.
So, there you go.
I'm not ready to talk Miami just yet, but we are going to talk about the Miami Major League Soccer David Beckham thing later in today's show. Since we're
they're
Manchester
still the
City,
Miami Beckhams, just to clarify. Until they announce a name, they're the Miami Beckhams.
Later on today, I want to call them the Miami Other Marlins.
Sure.
Later on today, also on Manchester City News, Aymeric Laporte. This was on Manchester City's website, as was the Jack Harrison move. So this thing's for real. Aymeric Laporte.
We're not done with City after this one either. So
really?
Yep.
From Athletic Club de Bilbao, 65 million euros, which is 57 million pounds. I believe that was his
57.2
release clause. So if you don't know Laporte, he's a 23-year-old centre-back. He's Basque, came up through the Club de Bilbao system. This kid is really good. This kid was in the scouting network a while back, but we stopped getting an update, so you haven't heard much about him recently. But a move like this has been on the cards for Aymeric Laporte for a long time. Everybody's expected him to go to a much bigger team. He's a solid defensive centre-back. He's also wonderful bringing the ball out of the back.
But then, Daryl Grove, the question is, why hasn't he moved earlier?
Oh, yeah, so this is a good... I actually heard this on the Euro Football League show as well. I want to credit these guys when I get the information from them. Apparently, 18 months ago, Man City were all set to buy him, and Laporte said, I'm not quite ready. I need a bit more seasoning in La Liga with Athletic Club de Bilbao, then I'll come to Man City.
Yep.
Which seems weird at the time, but makes a lot of sense, right? If you just feel that you're not quite ready for, the rigors of the Premier League and the pressure of playing for Man City, ask Stones, right? Then you might want the extra year and a half. It makes me feel like this is a kid who knows, not even a kid anymore, right? 23. This is a young man who knows exactly what he's about.
The thing that was strange to me, and then I realized how strange the world is in general, is that he is now their record signing at 57 million pounds.
More than De Bruyne.
He is meant to by 2 million. I think De Bruyne was like 55.
Oh, but, yeah. Well, they've come close a few times. It wasn't like Kyle Walker and Mendy also close to all these numbers.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying they haven't spent. I
think
they spent 300 million plus on 6 players.
I think they actually have 50 million pound notes.
They
seem to use that a lot.
Yeah, it's like the $1 trillion bill in The Simpsons. But it's also weird because when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's crazy that that's only their transfer limit or like their record transfer. And that really is just because of the reality we live in which players are now being sold for 130 million pounds. Suddenly 55, 57, 60 sounds like a great deal.
It's also testament, though, to, I don't want to praise Man City too much here, but they never seem to go after do you remember when the Man City takeover first happened and we knew that they would have all this money? It was all like, they're going to bid 100 and something million for Messi and Ronaldo and they're going to pay big money. They've never actually made one of those.
Well, they tried. That's the difference.
Is that true? Did that happen?
I mean, I think like if you look at the Robinho transfer, for example, that was not the world record transfer, but it was like way up there for a player who was maybe not on that level.
All right, maybe.
Well, I think what happened though is that they basically realized we can't do that. We can't. I mean, Berbatov, they offered more. Like he got hijacked by Man United, so I think they went the smarter route.
Kidnapped at the airport, right?
Yeah, that's what the story is to some extent. But I think what they ended up doing was going the smarter route and investing in like players that they could afford, or they could afford anybody, but players that wanted to go to Man City that saw it as an opportunity. Carlos Tevez as an example, and then they slowly built their way up. Emmanuel Adebayor, and then all of a sudden they are in that position where they can attract those huge name talents.
Yep, and Laporte I think is a perfect example of someone you pay a lot of money for, but I think he's going to do really, really well. If he doesn't do well in the first 6 months, that's kind of okay, right? They'll give him 6 months to get ready. I think early next season, you'll see the best of Laporte. One interesting part here, he's French, right? Because he's from the French Basque region, which is why he plays for Bilbao, because he's Basque. He's never played for the French national team. He's played under 21s a lot, never played for the senior French national team. So I think there's a hope on his part that playing for Man City might sort of set off some alarm bells and France will be like, oh, we should probably look into this guy a bit more seriously.
There's a decent chance, I would say. So I have one more Man City thing, but before we get to
I know who it is.
That, should we talk about one of our sponsors from today's show?
Yes, today's show is sponsored by Health IQ.
All right.
So Health IQ...
It's quiz time.
It is quiz
I'm
time.
going to liberate my brain.
But let me explain Health IQ before. You're excited for the quiz, right? Uh-huh. So it's a health quiz. Health IQ is an insurance company that helps health-conscious people get lower rates on their life insurance. So if you're a runner, if you're a vegetarian, if you're a soccer player, all these things make you a healthy person. That means you could qualify for lower rates on your life insurance. One of the ways you can qualify for lower rates is to answer a quiz on the Health IQ website. You set up a profile, then you answer a quiz. You get points for it. That goes towards proving that you are healthy. Taylor, it's time for you to prove that you are healthy.
Let's do it.
So it'd be very easy to give you the soccer quiz, right?
boy.
You'd probably get the answers like, what do shin guards protect?
Use your hands.
They're not really that easy. But I'm going to give you just the
ankles, right? Ankles
today's,
is the answer?
Today's mine do. I've got the extra pads. Today's quiz is efficient workouts for busy times.
Oh boy.
So it's questions about trying to do workouts even if you're kind of busy doing a podcast all day.
I think my efficient workout for busy times is not eating the donut, but instead getting a power bar. I'm not sure if that's what they have in mind.
Well, the clock is ticking here.
Okay.
You've already wasted 10 seconds.
Okay.
First question. I'm going to give you 3 questions. What is the best way for a person to maintain/increase cardio fitness if they only have a 20-minute workout period?
Okay.
Is it to increase intensity, to use visualization, to decrease intensity, or to skip warm-ups?
Increase intensity would be my guess.
Correct.
All right.
You get a point there.
All right.
Okay, next one. Most Americans say they would like to get more exercise. What is the most commonly cited barrier? Mm-hmm. Is it lack of equipment, lack of caring, lack of time, lack of space?
Lack of time.
It does seem on brand for the title of this quiz. Right?
Yeah.
That is correct. I thought that was a gimme, that one.
I think because I've said that to myself like 12 times in the past 2 days.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah, almost talking about trying to go swimming, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I manage it, sometimes I don't. Okay, third question. Joining a gym open 24/7 may allow one to squeeze in extra workouts. What is one potential problem with late night workouts? Is it a lack of cardio options? It may upset circadian rhythms. Don't nod yet. I've got to read you the other 2.
That one.
Well, the third one's lack of parking.
Uh-huh.
And the fourth one is finding parking.
Is the 5th one a toothbrush? Is like what's happening? Yeah.
Which one?
The rhythms one.
May upset circadian rhythms. That is correct.
Yee.
I've got to say, Health IQ,
3.
the quizzes are usually much harder.
Hey,
that one
whatever, man.
That one was way too easy.
But you take those quizzes, you pass them with flying colors.
That's true. You do build extra points.
There we
right?
go.
Yeah. Okay. If you want to see if you qualify for lower rates on your life insurance with Health IQ, go to healthiq.com/TSS. Or mention the promo code TSS when you talk to a Health IQ agent. If you do talk to Health IQ on the phone, please mention TSS. That way we get the credit for sort of alerting you to the existence of Health IQ.
There we go.
Thank you to Health IQ for sponsoring today's Total Soccer Show.
Thank you, Dale Grove, for hosting that quiz. I have to say, you're an excellent podcast co-host. I don't know if you're ever going to be replacing like Regis Philbin, that's a topical one, as like a game show host, because I can't imagine him being like, don't shake your head, don't nod your head. You wait until I'm finished reading the clues.
That's a good idea for a quiz show. Mean quiz host.
I'm sure that's that. I mean, that was...
Weakest link.
There it is.
Yes,
Thank you.
Then we did do that. Mm-hmm. We did do that. Okay. You said there was more Man City news. I know who it is now. I know who it is.
There
it's
is.
Riyad Mahrez, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Because obviously they don't have enough high-profile attackers. They need to add one more. So there are rumors out there that they are looking to add Riyad Mahrez to their squad.
Isn't this because Riyad Mahrez handed in a transfer request?
I mean, he handed in transfer request,
last
summer? 2 summers ago?
I read that today as if it had just happened.
Uh-huh.
I've realised his transfer request there's dust on it, right? It's been in there a long time.
I mean, he wrote a whole thing on Instagram saying goodbye to Leicester, and that was, I think, a year ago?
Oh, no.
So, yeah. He has handed in a transfer request, but it seems like even that is not enough. It sounds like he is going to...
He's handed in a transfer request reminder.
Yeah, but I think he's going to have to really do a little bit of forcing to get this move to happen. I think he might have to do some protesting. That said...
He's been very polite, right? He hasn't like gone on strike like Aubameyang or Lee Win or any of those guys. He's kind of just stuck at it and kept dribbling for Leicester.
This is true. I think with that in mind, that this is a little bit of posturing from Leicester. They've also come out and said it would take a mind-blowing fee for us to let him go. And I just think, now granted, clubs don't always act the right way. See what happened to Blake Griffin with the LA Clippers last night? Not great. But in this situation...
What happened?
I think when they tried to get him to extend his contract, they like hung his jersey from the rafters and they talked about how he's a lifelong Clipper, and then they traded him to Detroit. So... Not quite. But here, I think maybe this is the club looking at it and thinking, he stuck with us, maybe some offers came in, maybe he's kept playing, maybe he did one out, but I think at the end of the day, they can't just say, like, sure, you can have him. So they've got to posture a little bit and say, we need a mind-blowing fee. He's got to force his way out. And they've probably already said, like, yeah, put your transfer request in. If they meet this amount, we'll let you go.
So it's just to get as much money as possible from the Man City checkbook.
Yes.
They're going to say, have you got any more of those £50 million blank checks lying around? Because I feel like they have checks that are made out to £50 million for player. And you just write the club's name at the top and send it.
It's going to take a little bit more than that. From what I understand, the reports say they have already been offered 68 million euros. Wow. But Leicester say they have not.
That's about £50 million, isn't it?
It's a little more than that, I think. I don't know how those things work anymore. But Leicester say they haven't received any bids as of yet. So who knows what is the reality.
So part of this, I believe, is Leroy Sané's injury, right? Which prompted a tweet from the German Federation of our players. We're hoping to use our players this summer. Please be more careful.
Yeah, I think that's the fourth. Should have been a red card tackle that a Man City player.
There's a lot on De Bruyne, right?
Saw something like that. Yeah.
So I think Sané's injury may open up a short-term window for Riyad Mahrez. But with all due respect to Riyad Mahrez, brilliant as he was that title-winning season, and very, very good player that he is, I don't think he's better than Kevin De Bruyne or Leroy Sané.
No, but.
I think it'd be a rough move. Oh, you think it's about making?
Algeria not going to the World Cup, so it's not like he has to keep himself informed to make the World Cup squad. So I do wonder if there's an element of I can go win a Premier League again.
Yeah.
I can get some minutes. I can get more money. I can be considered world class because I'm around a bunch of world class players.
True. He may be confident enough to just back himself of if I'm there, I'll be up to standard.
There you go.
Yeah.
Could be.
So there's all your Man City news. And the more these big money deals you see going through, the more the Diskerud and Harrison things make sense because they need, like Chelsea, they need more and more of those things to offset the big money things.
Yeah.
I keep saying things, but I think it makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
I also think one other point with the Jack Harrison move is that City have in the past had some issues with the number of young English players because you do have to have a certain amount.
Yeah, but would Jack Harrison count as a homegrown player if he'd spent most of his young life in America?
That's a good question.
I don't think it would.
Oh boy.
Because he wasn't trained by a Premier League team. He was trained by, a university and then New York City FC.
All right.
Yeah.
You never know. Man City of lawyers.
Because that's the thing. Those homegrown things for the Premier League and for UEFA are not about nationality. They're about location. They're about geography.
Yeah. All right. Well, never mind then. Shall we stay?
Sorry to push
No. That's interesting though. I hadn't considered that, so that's good to know. Should we stay in England or should we move elsewhere?
Let's go. Well, what else you got in England?
I've got Lucas Moura to Tottenham.
Oh, yeah. So that's all I know. Lucas Moura from PSG to Tottenham. I believe he is in London right now talking to Tottenham.
I believe you are correct. Yeah. £25 million. Personal terms already agreed. He's 25 years old, which is insane to me because he moved.
We've known about him a while?
Yeah, he moved to PSG in 2013, I think so. That's how long he's been around. I think he was
in the early days of the PSG money, right?
I think he was one of their first impact, we've got a bunch of money type signings. The interesting thing for me, though, which I did not know, is that he is the backup option that Pochettino wanted, Wilfried Zaha. And Crystal Palace said, no, thank you, go away, we're disconnecting our phone.
That's interesting.
Yes, they were rebuffed, so in comes Lucas Moura instead.
That's a very high rating for Zaha, right? To be the Moura as your backup option.
Yeah.
Yeah?
But I think when you go proven in the Premier League versus not starting for PSG anymore, maybe you go proven in the Premier League.
Do you want to switch to Major League Soccer?
Sure,
okay.
Unless you have anything else.
I got nothing else from Europe. Have you?
I'll round out with Emerson Palmieri moving from Roma to Chelsea. 23-year-old left wing back.
Are we sure that's happening?
Yeah, £17.5 million confirmed. Which I was really surprised by because he's been starting for Roma. So that seems again. I think some of this January window for me has been surprising amounts. Like Giroud for $17 million feels like it could be more. This one, a starting left wing back for Roma moving to Chelsea, seems like it should have been more.
Wasn't there a rumour that Roma were on the wrong end of some financial fair play numbers and they needed to sell a couple guys in January to make things work?
That would not surprise
me. Don't PSG need to do the same thing as well? I'm expecting that we would see a couple... Oh, we were just talking about Lucas Moura. That's exactly what the Lucas Moura sale is about, right? We've got to make some money, balance the books at PSG.
He's not going to do it. I think they have to sell 3 of him to make that happen.
Is that the reason we're seeing, in my opinion, more moves than ever during the January transfer window? Is you have a lot of teams spent big in the summer and suddenly are sort of like, oh, we gotta offload some players here and bring some money in so that our accountant can say, give us the FFP check.
That I think is definitely part of it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a big FFP check mark for sure. But I think it is also just that you've got to give time for accounts to settle. If you did sell a player and then that moves around who has what money, you've got to kind of make sure do we have that much money? Okay, now we can buy in January. So I wonder if that's an element to it as well. My final one from England is Daniel Sturridge.
Oh, yes.
Moving on to West Brom. That feels big to me.
Yeah.
And even though it's him moving on loan, I think there is a fee for the loan, and I think there is an option to buy at the end.
Makes
it
sense.
just feels big because Daniel Sturridge is a guy who, strangely enough, like I really equate with Liverpool, even though that's not where he came from. But it is just it is
from Man City to Chelsea to Liverpool, or Chelsea, Man City to Liverpool.
One of those.
Either
way, it feels like a little bit of an end of an era. In the sense of he's a guy who definitely was there with Brendan Rodgers, was there maybe before that? I'm not sure. But it's just a little strange to see it go. And then my question is kind of connected to, there's a good article by Sachin Nakrani for The Guardian, basically about Daniel Sturridge and how it was just sort of like wrong place, wrong time for him at Liverpool with Jurgen Klopp. And it does make me wonder if he is sort of, this is going to be harsh, if he is the next Danny Welbeck or if he is the next Wilfried Zaha, of a player who was like at a club and it just wasn't quite clicking, moved somewhere else, and then we see what happens. And in Danny Welbeck's case, it hasn't really broken through. But then you have Wilfried Zaha, who's found his form and is now, getting Tottenham rejected.
My feeling is Daniel Sturridge will thrive when he is the 100% first choice. Injuries are another matter, right? There's always that rumor that maybe he always thinks he's more injured than he is. I don't know how much to believe that. Like he'll say, "I can't go," and the physio will be like, "You probably
because it's about like toughness and Klopp wanting."
But that also might be a thing where you become, when you are like susceptible to injuries, you maybe get more protective of your body and think, I don't want to re-injure this. I'm going to be a bit more careful than the club that's pushing me to play. So if that stuff can go right, which I think it involves crossing your fingers a little bit and just hoping for the best, and he starts every week, I think Sturridge has this great nose for goal type thing, as in he'll shoot from any angle and shoot on target from any angle. I really like that from Sturridge.
West Brom could certainly use him. You said injuries are another... What did you say?
Issue? Problem? I can't remember.
You said
concern?
Oh, man, you didn't make it work at all. You said matter, but you said it with your accent. So I was going to add that Juan Mata has signed a contract extension. That's my final bit of English news. Thanks for stepping on the joke, Daryl.
It's almost as if I didn't want to make it work for you. I'm a very bad straight man, right? I just wouldn't set it up.
To be fair, it was me calling back to a phrase you said in half a second, like 2 minutes before that. So maybe not great work on my part.
Before we move on to Major League Soccer, I've actually got some semi-political news to talk about.
Uh-oh.
I want to talk about the State of the Union. They've signed Mark McKenzie to a homegrown player deal. Mark McKenzie will be with the Philadelphia Union in 2018.
I knew where you were going with it.
Did you?
But I just wasn't sure, did Philly sign somebody huge? You just really wanted to shoehorn that one in, huh?
Kind of, but that did happen. Mark McKenzie, who was with Beckham Steel, centre-back, 18-year-old or 19-year-old centre-back, was with the USL team, is now officially with the first team at Philadelphia Union. Mark McKenzie. Going to add him to the scouting network. It really did get my attention. And there was an opportunity for a C-plus joke.
Yeah.
At best.
Yeah, B minus. B minus. I'll give it to you.
But shall we talk some Major League Soccer?
Sure.
I invite you to choose where we start.
I mean, there's a couple of different big stories out there. Justin Meram moving to Orlando City. That's going to be big for them. Kind of a bummer for Columbus. But I'm also going to stick with Orlando City and maybe say we should talk about Cyle Larin.
Yes. Okay, so the news I saw is that. So there was a bit of a standoff, right, where Larin believed his contract was over and he could just sign for Besiktas. Orlando had sort of a 1 or 2 year option that was for the team only to trigger if they wanted to.
Yep.
So they did. And then there was a standoff of Besiktas thought they got him for free. Orlando said, no, he's still our player. I think there was a statement today from Orlando. Did I type this up? Yeah. Orlando released a statement saying, after recognising the existence of a valid contract, Besiktas has agreed with Orlando City SC on terms for the transfer of forward Cyle Larin to the Turkish side for an undisclosed fee.
That's a club that understands the importance of a misplaced modifier because they made that one, because that could have been a very different statement if they had flipped around which club came first in that one.
Yep.
But yes, they were definitely putting that on Besiktas as coming to terms.
So, but my guess is that it wasn't that much money. I feel like Besiktas were just like, how much to make this go away?
I believe what's been quoted is 1.8 million euros or about $2.3 million.
That's cheap for Cyle Larin.
It might be a little bit more. The other key component there is that Major League Soccer has reportedly ceded its share to prevent any sort of arbitration and legal fees that would result from arbitration. So basically, Major League Soccer have said, you can have the full fee. Let's just get this done.
Interesting.
I did want to add, because we talked about this when we were in Philly, this situation with Cyle Larin, and we were definitely...
one of those echoey shows.
Yeah, and we were definitely... There was a sheet there. I made us a fort.
I think it was the first time we did it. It was echoey.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we did get a lot of feedback from people basically saying, like, this is a very standard contract clause in American sports contracts. And I think you might...
That doesn't mean Turkish people have to recognise it, though. Or they have to, like be familiar with it.
I mean, a 1-year option. I mean, that's what I believe Man United have done with Juan Mata. I mean,
but with his approval.
True. That's definitely true. But I think maybe you're a little bit off the hook on this one, but I would say I probably should have known better and been less like, yeah, damn the man, and been more like, well, that is something that happens fairly regularly, and it's part of signing a contract. Now, if you want to talk about the fairness of like making those mandatory, that you're basically forcing a player to sign that rookie contract, with the argument being, well, you can sign elsewhere.
He was a teenager at the time as well, so I think it's very easy to get a teenager to sign a contract that looks good at the time, but is like, maybe you secretly know, oh, he's going to be good, we're going to make him sign this longer term deal.
Get a better agent is, I guess, what I would say.
I guess that's true, but you shouldn't have to protect yourself from your own league.
That's probably true as well. But as we've learned, you never really can trust the leagues or the teams that much, because at any given moment, they may trade you away.
Okay, should we go to more controversial transfers? I mentioned Lee Win earlier. So Lee Win of the New England Revolution is 100% on strike, refusing to show up for training. New England are saying, you better show up for training one day. We're not selling you. And we're kind of in a standoff here, right? It's like the final scene of Reservoir Dogs.
Sure.
But with only 2 people.
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe with a third person.
And one of those 2 people has a lot more guns.
Which one? The club,
I would say New England in this situation.
All right. Well, there's New England, there's Major League Soccer, who's technically Lee Win's employer, right? There's Lee Win, but there could be a fourth Mexican gunman, I guess, enter this. A European team, right? I think the solution here, I think I heard this on Extra Time Radio today, Bobby Warshaw, maybe a couple of days ago, talking about how the solution would be for a European team to come in and buy Lee Win, because then New England Revolution don't have to be embarrassed into trading a player who's on strike to, a rival team within the league.
Yeah. I think, and when this story first broke, I think there were reports that Vietnamese clubs were interested in Lee Win because
he played there before, right? And he lit it up, apparently.
Yeah. So that's also a possibility. That would be. It's
probably not his plan, though, right?
No,
because Lee Win is getting to very late 20s. I believe it's kind of now or never. My guess is he ends up at a lower league Dutch team, maybe a Belgian team. You know what I mean? Somewhere with easy work permit requirements, and like a level of play that has some faith in American talent.
So if you had to wager right now on, is he playing in the near future with the Revolution, with another Major League Soccer team, or a team in Europe, you'd go Europe?
I think I would accept that we're so close to the window closing, right? There's like 36 hours at time of recording for that to happen.
There is that.
There's literally 24 hours and 2 minutes at time of recording until the window closes.
Is that when it closes? Oh, right.
Midnight in England.
We're 5 hours behind. There we go. All right. I have one more Major League Soccer story, and it's a big one.
Okay.
Do you have any other players on the move?
I have someone not on the move. Okay. Kellyn Acosta. I thought this would be the January that Kellyn Acosta gets his move to Europe. No sign of it. It looks like Kellyn Acosta will start the season with FC Dallas.
They've also, I think they just traded an allocation spot for a decent amount of money. They traded that spot to Orlando. So it seems like they are acquiring a bunch of Gam and Tam, or maybe specifically Tam. They got a bunch for the Walker Zimmerman trade.
They planning something?
I don't think so, though, because it sounds like they are going to be promoting a bunch of their youth players, and maybe they just want to keep together as much of that core team as they can.
On that note, so I've just checked, it's not in the scouting reports, but I did see a report from John Arnold. You know John Arnold, who writes for Goal.com. He's based in Dallas, at least some of the time, that Reggie Cannon, 19-year-old right back, looks like he's going to be the starter for FC Dallas next season.
And that means he's replacing Grana, right?
Yes.
So I am fine with that.
Yes, and if you watch some Reggie Cannon highlights, admittedly like for, college and development academy, he looks an incredible right back. Like pass and move the ball really quickly. So I think Reggie Cannon MLS will be a reason to watch Dallas next season.
All right. Well, before we get to the final bit of Major League Soccer news that I have, at least, I did want to mention the NWSL, and I have a that's bad and then maybe that's good. I don't really know how else to phrase this, but
can I write these down? I'm going to write these down over here on a piece of paper.
You know what they are.
Do I?
Yeah.
All right, I've written them down.
Because we haven't talked about it since the story came out that the potential new ownership group for the Boston Breakers fell through.
Yep.
So the league was looking to get other investors or to figure out the solutions, and it ended up being that the club had to fold.
Yep.
So that is very disappointing. They were one of they've been around for since WUSA or since
I don't know.
They've been around for multiple iterations, as I recall. So it is sad to lose that team. The fallout to that has been that there was a dispersal draft where clubs could then pick up players that were drafted or signed by Boston, and that has led to the Washington Spirit suddenly becoming a very compelling team to watch this coming season.
Because they picked up Rose Lavelle, didn't they?
They did. With the first pick, I think they traded to get the first pick. They gave away, I think they have 2 draft picks next year. They gave away one of those, the higher pick, whatever that might be, to get Rose Lavelle. But then they also in the offseason traded Crystal Dunn's rights. She has moved to Chelsea, but I guess they didn't care about her rights, or somebody really, really did care about her rights.
North Carolina?
Mm-hmm. They got Ashley Hatch and Taylor Smith. So suddenly you've
Taylor
got...
Smith was the right back who played for the women's national team against Denmark, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you've got Andy Sullivan was their first pick in the draft this year, and you've got Mallory Pugh.
Yes.
Suddenly you've got an incredibly young, incredibly exciting Washington Spirit team in a way that they did not have last season.
Do you want the even better news for me and you and some people in Richmond?
Sure.
The Richmond Kickers announced that they are hosting basically a preseason game between Washington Spirit and I believe North Carolina.
Ooh.
So we're going to get to see, unless all these US players are away at the She Believes Cup, I've just realised that might be happening.
Even so, we'll still get to see Washington Spirit, and hopefully the Spirit Squadron will make their way down, because I'd like to attend a game with them, because it sounds like they're a rowdy bunch.
All right, so we'll go to that game, even if there's no Lavelle, Pugh, etc.
Yes, unless it's in the World Cup. We shouldn't be in the World Cup, right?
No, it's March. It's in March.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
That's what I'm saying. It might match the She Believes Cup, so that they'll be missing those star players.
Right, I forgot the whole preseason part of that statement. Gotcha.
Okay, moving on. I've got 2 major League Soccer bits of news.
All right.
Do you want to go player or club?
Let's go player.
Okay. It looks very likely that Zlatan Ibrahimovic is on his way to the LA Galaxy.
Okay.
There are strong rumours of it, and then there's a quote from Jose Mourinho saying if he wants to go, we won't stand in his way. The Major League Soccer transfer window, I believe, opens February 7th. That's when all the signings can start being made. So it looks like Zlatan to LA. Galaxy.
And it seems like divided opinion to some
extent.
extent.
It's really interesting, right?
Yeah, which I can't say surprises me too much, because it is Zlatan Ibrahimovic coming back from that ACL surgery and then is injured again at this point. I don't think it's the same knee, but it might be just that it's taking a little bit of time.
But it's a body part.
Mm-hmm. But either way, it's definitely an injured Zlatan suddenly linked with a move to the LA Galaxy.
Yep, 2 good tweets I saw.
And to be fair, we've never seen a high-profile player arrive at the Galaxy injured and have that sort of try to be a non-story.
So the 2 good tweets I saw.
At least Grant Wall gets a sequel, I guess, so we're good there.
The Zlatan experiment.
Yeah.
So Jared Dewar, formerly of Best Soccer Show, tweeted, basically, we don't need he's an LA Galaxy fan as well, we don't need a 36-year-old with bad knees coming to the LA Galaxy, right? Which I can kind of see that. But then you have...
Don't they already have Ashley Cole?
We don't need another.
Okay.
I think Cole's knees are fine.
And I'm not sure he's 36, but either way.
No, he's not.
The joke still stands.
I also saw a tweet from Zach Goldman who said that he's like, part of him is, I'm sick of all these like over-the-hill DPs coming from Europe to the United States. But the other part of me says, Zlatan in MLS will be the best thing ever. And I kind of feel that way. Like I see all kinds of problems with it. I would prefer that we didn't get players retiring, like having their final job in Major League Soccer. I would prefer that young Americans get a chance. But I also wouldn't be against watching Zlatan on TV.
I mean, he is another player. I'm trying to think of, Beckham maybe was obviously the first one. I'm trying to think of another player who would make me drive up to RFK, or not RFK anymore, to Audi Field or whatever it might be when he comes to town. I would drive that distance to watch Zlatan just to see him in person, just because it is, even if it's like you're seeing the Rolling Stones now, it is still like, yeah, but if you've never seen the Rolling Stones, maybe you want to see the Rolling Stones. Maybe you want to see Zlatan just to say you saw Zlatan in person.
He is kind of the Keith Richards of soccer.
I mean, except he's lived a way cleaner life. But
he struts like Jagger.
I believe does not drink, does not smoke, no drugs. So.
Okay, so he's more Jagger than Richards.
Yeah. Well, I think Mick did a fair amount of drugs.
That'll be the big Keith Richards secret.
We'll
find out one day. He's been vegan for 70 years.
If you read Up and Down with the Rolling Stones, the the biography by their drug dealer, I would say he is definitely not secretly sober.
Maybe it's just part of all the myth building. Because the other thing about Zlatan, he's very good at creating his own myth, his own brand. You know what I mean? A lot of those... Do you remember when he had his knee surgery and then his agent, is Riola his agent?
Yeah.
Said that, the surgeon said they were like the strongest tendons he's ever seen. And then about 2 weeks later, the surgeon was like, I never said that. What are you talking about? And the I Am Zlatan book has all those great quotes.
They're made of adamantium. It's so strange.
The I Am Zlatan book has all those great quotes in it and those great stories. A lot of them apparently made up by the author. So there's definitely like a myth of Zlatan that's been built up around him. It's some very clever branding. Yeah. I kind of feel like part of Zlatan's deal with MLS should be centre forward for the LA Galaxy, but also maybe get him in charge of branding the league as well.
I mean, that would be the worst thing. I I understand why Jared is a little bit nervous about this move, though. Because on the one hand, I mean, it is Zlatan. I do still think he would do amazing things and score big goals.
Yeah.
But if you look at what the Galaxy have done this offseason, they have compiled a good squad. And you look at the moves they've made to get Ola Kamara up top. You're going to have Lletget and Alessandrini out wide. You're going to have Gio Dos Santos and Jonathan Dos Santos and Perry Kitchen. That's a solid, like, front five-ish. Not front five, obviously.
Certainly better than last year.
Indeed. But I don't know if that suits Zlatan that well. I don't know if he fits into that lineup in the way that, say, Ola Kamara does.
Okay, here's my argument. I think if you were bringing Zlatan in, and like Jared Dubois says, 36-year-old Zlatan with bad knees, and you were sort of like, hey, Zlatan, you're our main guy. Everything hinges on you and your knees, which don't always hinge correctly, then you've got trouble, right? But if you've got, say Zlatan needs a rest, you've got Ola Kamara with Gio Dos Santos behind him, which in my head fits, right? Dos Santos needs to be like underneath a more strikery striker. He can be the second striker. That's why the Keane Santos thing didn't work. I can see that working. And then, like, you know, Zlatan sometimes replaces Kamara, sometimes replaces Dos Santos, or, you know, maybe one of those guys gets a rest. There's just less pressure on him to play every week on some dodgy surfaces or maybe when he's hurting.
I realized why I'm down on this move and why I said, oh no, and it's because I really just genuinely like Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
You don't want him to leave United?
No, it's not even that. It's more so that there is a chance it might not work out, that he comes here and doesn't want to play on turf or doesn't want to be like a backup at times and sit on the bench, and he'll say, like, no, I came here to be Zlatan, I will start, and it becomes a problem. And I don't want his career to end on a down note. I want it to end on him lifting MLS Cup or lifting the Premier League trophy. Either one is fine with me.
Here's an interesting lens to look at it. So the rumour I saw is actually that he's not going to be as designated player. Right, is going to be paid for with targeted allocation money. I believe rules and regulations are complicated in MLS, right? I believe you can't be a TAM guy and paid down if you're earning over 1.5 million a year. Right, you kind of have to be a DP. I believe. I may be wrong. I guess at me personally, not at Total Soccer Show. Don't make Taylor suffer if I'm wrong. But that means that possibly Zlatan is taking almost a part-time paycheck to be sort of maybe a part-time player.
Yeah,
which actually might be a good deal for the LA Galaxy.
/ get paid to live in Los Angeles.
Right, exactly. He gets to live in LA. He gets to sort of play some soccer, but he doesn't have to, like, you know, keep flying across the country to play every single week and get ground down and get his knees ground down. I'm veering into conspiracy theory here, but I think this is quite realistic.
Man, he has lived in. If he moves to Los Angeles, he has lived in some cities.
He's hit the cities, right?
He really has, because he's got Barcelona in there, he's got Milan in there, he's got Paris,
Turin,
Manchester, not quite as lovely as London.
It's got its own special cool.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
That's the Smiths.
And then Los Angeles, Malmo too?
Yeah.
Sure, why not? And Ajax. So Amsterdam. Man, wow, okay. Okay, Zlatan.
So yeah, this could work out in a part-time kind of way. We'll see if I'm right. I could be way off with this.
Well, one thing that will not be happening, at least according to Don Garber, is that Zlatan will not be getting the David Beckham clause into any potential contract. Arch Bell, who is, I think, a U.S. reporter from Marca and ESPN, his tweet was, I spent the day in Miami at the Beckham event, asked MLS Commissioner Don Garber if a Beckham ownership clause would ever be considered for Messi or Ronaldo. And Garber responded, no, we'll never do that again.
Because he's getting a team for $25 million instead of $150 million.
That's probably part of it.
All right, before we delve into this Miami MLS thing, we have a second sponsor on today's show. Today's other sponsor is Woven, might be one of our favourite T-shirt companies in the whole world.
Woven,
Woven. Here's how Woven works. It's $15 a month. For that, you get a T-shirt every month. It's a T-shirt designed by a professional graphic designer that Woven have identified as talented. They've got maybe a scouting system. They asked them to create a Woven brand design, which means kind of sort of elegant, not too busy, kind of stylish. Just what Daryl likes. That's the that's the mission statement they have. And then they mail it to your house. How about that?
That's not bad.
Woven.com. I was thinking, Taylor, if you and I were going to try and design a Woven T-shirt with our limited Photoshop skills, what would it look like? Especially, let's say it's transfer window related.
Sure. If we're going to go transfer window related, I'm going to go January transfer window because that's where we are. You might have some brand or trademark issues here, but whichever of like CVS, Walgreens, or Rite Aid will let you have their logo or like just a storefront on the shirt, that's what I want.
Why?
Because we're in January, which is also a time when we tend to get a lot of snow. And I'm going to guess that anybody who's lived in like an urban environment or even a suburban environment, maybe it's about to snow and you think, I don't really want to drive to the store. I'll buy $7 eggs from Walgreens. That's fine. And that's basically what the January window is. It's like, it's not the ideal market to buy players, but it's the opportunity you have. And so maybe you have to spend a little bit more, but it makes it easier to deal with things in the short term.
This is why I'm glad that Woven chooses their professional designers. So they don't.
I'm just saying, I think that's a pretty good representation of the January window.
A pharmacy storefront.
Well, just the idea of, look, this one is the corner store, for example. I know I'm spending more, but I don't have to get in the car in the snow and drive to a store.
Okay, I think I like your design better, and it'd be more on brand for Woven if it was like a cool, like kind of hipsterish local store, like maybe where you live, like it'd be Union Market in Churchill, rather than Rite Aid,
and like a sign that says "Last Chance," like "Last Chance before Blizzard" is what I'm saying, because that's basically what the January window is.
Mine would be a sort of, and feel free to criticize mine now. I criticize yours. Mine would be like a sketch.
I hate it.
A sketch outline of a window, not too much detail, just a suggestion of a window. A little bit of frost on the glass because it's January. Mm-hmm. That's it.
That's not bad.
I think that's more on brand for Woven. It's more like suggestions than sort of super detailed designs.
You've learned nothing, though, Daryl Grove.
Why is that?
Because I believe you got hit with a copyright infringement lawsuit, didn't you? For using a window previously?
Yes, I did. On a website.
Way back when, for using a picture of a window.
Yep, I did. Well, this one I'll draw myself.
Trolls are the best, aren't they?
We can guarantee that Woven will not be hit with any trademark or copyright infringement because they pay the designer creates the design specifically for Woven, and then it gets shipped to your house. If you go to woven.com, WOHVEN.com, and you even get a discount on that $15 t-shirt, get a 25% discount if you use the discount code TSS2018. TSS2018 for 25% off, a Woven t-shirt. Link will be in the show notes. I can say that because I'm doing the show notes.
There we go. So thank you to Woven for sponsoring today's show. One more note there. Any of the designers who designed things for the Woven could also maybe be employed by the Miami Beckhams to design any of the things that they have not yet designed.
So no name, no logo.
They're called the Miami Beckhams until otherwise.
That seems fair to me. Or the Miami, not the Marlins.
Yes.
Okay, so the news...
Or not Miami FC?
The news yesterday, I believe, that they finally announced that 4 years after they finally announced, there is going to be a Miami MLS team with David Beckham as part of the ownership group. The other parts of the ownership group, I can't name all of them. Simon Fuller, I believe, who was like Beckham's agent and manager, and the Mas brothers, M-A-S, who I believe are Cuban brothers who are sort of big in the construction industry in Miami. That part's important, because they're going to build a stadium.
It certainly is.
Which has been the key thing all along, right? They had to have a stadium. And I believe part of the £25 million thing is, $25 million, part of that deal was, we want to see a stadium before we sell you a team for, I don't even know what the percentage of $25 million is of 150, but it's a sliver.
Yeah. It's a sliver. We'll do that. I think it's 1/6.
It is 1/6, yeah. We can sell you a team for a sixth of the price.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
So I've been looking into this. Have you done some reading as well? Or do you want me to sort of... Okay, where should we start with this then?
Probably the stadium itself.
Okay, so the stadium has been in multiple locations. They finally found one in Overtown.
Yep.
As I understand it, Overtown is historically black neighborhood, Miami's oldest black neighborhood, I saw it described as. Not particularly developed. There hasn't been a lot of investment in the neighborhood. But there's also a lot of neighborhood opposition because they don't really want a stadium there. None of the local community is convinced that a stadium brings jobs.
Which is a fair criticism?
I think is a fair criticism. You can say it brings hundreds of jobs in terms of like working the ticket styles and all that sort of stuff. That's not a full-time job.
No,
you know
I mean, it's definitely a part-time job. It's also a seasonal job.
Yep.
You could then make the argument that maybe it's construction, but then you don't know what those construction companies are going to do, if they're going to keep their own people, if they're going to already like trusted construction companies or contractors. So we shall see in terms of how much of a boom it is. I guess the other argument would then be that with the stadium comes further development. You get restaurants and family attractions and that type of thing.
So I think the other complaint is that it could be like it could be too successful and you gentrify the neighborhood and you push people out. So there's reasons for local people to oppose this stadium in Overtown.
Yep.
Do you think I'm pronouncing that correctly? I've never heard of Overtown before.
Yeah. I think it's Overtown. No, it's not. Yes, you're doing it right. But there is one positive to the stadium, yes?
What's that?
It is not going to be publicly funded.
Yes, because of what happened. Apparently, this is what I read. The city or the county is on the hook for $2.4 billion for the Marlins Stadium. They said, never again. So that means that this stadium will be sort of privately financed. There'll be no public money. I'm 100% behind that part of it, because I'm a big believer that no city or county should ever pay for a stadium, especially when the owners are very, very wealthy.
And especially when the owners of the Marlins, once that stadium comes into existence and really finds its form, gets sold to the Yankees. That's a joke for you Marlins fans out there.
I don't get that, but I hope someone does.
Or you Yankees fans, or just any baseball fans.
One other complaint about the stadium, I'm really just rounding up what I've read here, right? Bruce Matheson, who's a wealthy Miami landowner, is suing the county because he says they sold it to Beckham and his group at way below market value. There was a section of the plot where the stadium will be was sold to the group for $9 million. He's filed a lawsuit that this should have been an open bid and it would have gone for way, way, way more than that. So the county has sold its land at below market price. That's not serving the public good.
It is not. I think, though, I'm correct. I may be wrong again. Happy to hear otherwise. That maybe part of the stadium is going to be on brownfield development sites, which are basically places that have been environmentally contaminated. So essentially, they require a lot of remediation and treatment in order to be usable land again.
Oh, like the bus depot was here in Richmond, right?
Exactly.
When the developers brought it, they had to clean it up. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
So I think that maybe factors into it, though, that they're developing all this other land that would otherwise not be developed. So maybe you get this other part of the land at a discounted price.
Okay.
Still slightly suspect.
So I joked about the State of the Union stuff earlier. We actually are veering into political territory here, right? I guess
to some extent, but from everything I've ever heard, Blair Hollingsworth, for example, our Miami resident listener and friend,
Miami correspondent,
he has said basically it is all about who you know in Miami, more so than many other cities. It's just you've got to know the right people to make the things happen because everybody has interest in all of these different construction projects.
That's why the Mass Brothers coming on board seems to have been the thing that pushed this forward. Yeah. All right, so it's happening. I believe, I don't know if this was official, but the thinking seems to be 2020 is when the Miami MLS team starts. The one upside I see soccer-wise is, I know there's the Miami FC there right now, but if it comes with an MLS team, comes the development academy, you do sort of capture more of that or serve better that sort of youth soccer player Miami market if you've got a development academy there that's part of an MLS team and is free to play.
And I believe that's what Don Garber was going for, to paraphrase his remarks. He was saying this isn't a Miami franchise, this is a South Florida franchise, this is the Caribbean franchise, this is all of these different
Caribbean
things.
franchise.
Maybe you didn't say that, but I think he was trying to say we have so many players coming from Central and South America.
I see.
This is a more direct connection.
Yeah. So he's not expecting people to jet in from Antigua to watch Miami in Major League Soccer.
I think they certainly should. No, I think he's more so saying that it increases the reach, it increases the attractiveness, and obviously if you have global stars who are maybe reaching the tail end of their careers, maybe they look at retiring in Miami as a more favorable option.
2020 Cristiano Ronaldo?
Maybe, but we've already started to see maybe it's just a coordinated effort. It probably is, but there was Messi, I think, said you never know. He chimed in on a video conference, and then Neymar posted an Instagram of maybe in a couple of years, give me a call. I think a lot of players are going to start to look at that. Yeah, that's next year, and then a couple of years after that is the move to Miami FC, I think, or Miami Beckhams. Excuse me.
I do think, I don't know if this is true for Americans, but for non-Americans like myself, Miami is always one of the places you think of when you think of the United States, and you picture it in this very sandy beach, blue waters kind of paradise kind of way. I do think Miami will have this big international draw for Messi or Neymar or someone like that.
I would say it's 4 areas of the country that people focus on, maybe 5. I would say you've got.
I deliberately didn't start listing cities because you're going to lose. You're going to miss one out, and they're going to be upset.
I mean, it's L.A., New York.
Yeah.
It's Miami.
Yeah.
It's Texas, and it's maybe Vegas. Is what I would say are the 5 things that I think if you're coming to the United States, those are if you look at the map that if you have people from Europe draw a map of the United States, it is always a weird jumble of things, but those things are clearly delineated.
And where should people from Chicago send their emails?
They should send them to DARYL at. I'm just saying, I love Chicago, but go to Independence Day, the movie. I believe Chicago was the second wave of alien invasion. It was not the first one. Just saying.
You're doubling down on it.
I think Houston was as well. Just saying.
Let's end on a positive.
Okay.
I did see some stories that because of the way things have been...
Deep dish pizza is nonsense. There we go.
It's TAYLOR at TotalSoccerShow.com. Because of the problems moving the team to Austin, and I want to say because of the really vocal protests of Major League Soccer fans and the Save the Crew movement that has been contacting front offices and businesses, there is talk of Anthony Precourt and Columbus reaching out to Columbus about maybe staying in the city.
Yep.
This is the most recent development I have. There's nothing concrete yet, but it's more of a possibility than it was a month ago or 2 months ago or 3 months ago.
Yep. I would say
well done, Morgan Hughes. So
yes.
far. Keep it up.
Excellent campaign. Keep it up. It still does bum me a little bit that the two Wannaboy players have been left to go away, basically. That you have Olak Mar gone, Justin Meram gone as well. So that doesn't necessarily bode well, but it is not quite the death knell that I would have thought it was a month ago, given the updates we've seen.
Yep, there's always hope. There's always hope.
Indeed.
Speaking of hope.
And Chicago fans, I just want to add that I was one of the first people to be pumped about Nemanja Nikolic, at least on this show.
It's too late
just
now.
saying.
It's too late
just
now.
saying.
The damage is done. They've already turned off.
Yeah, it's fine.
Speaking of hope, shall we
You guys are
move
never
on
going to win a World Cup with that attitude. That's all I'm saying.
Soccer Show Scouting Network. That's a good joke.
Thanks.
We have got some exciting young Americans to talk about in the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network. Tyler, would you kick us off with...
Connor Siegel?
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't know what the pause was for. I was so confused. Scouting Brooks Lennon, the 20-year-old American right winger for RSL. I forgot he was only 20 years old. Brooks received his first call-up to the U.S. national team, or national team, for the January camp, but didn't make the matchday squad for the 0-0 draw with Bosnia. So no senior debut as of yet, and he instead returns to preseason camp in Tucson. Connor concludes that the next generation of U.S. national teamers appears to be a tight-knit group if their hibachi Instagram stories are any indicator. I don't know what that's about, but I do plan on looking up whatever hibachi Instagram posts have occurred.
So after some recent encouragement, we're back in on this US men's national team is national team business.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Okay. John Samponia is scouting Jalen Lindsay, 17-year-old American defender for Sporting KC. He was the right back with the U17s, right? John says Lindsay kicked off the Sporting KC preseason in impressive fashion, assisting on fellow homegrown player Gianluca Bussio's goal in a 2-1 win over Phoenix Rising. The game was split into 3 30-minute periods. Lindsay played the entirety of the second 30.
That'll work. So
this is good news.
Yeah.
We've got these homegrown players getting minutes in preseason. We might see them in Major League Soccer next year.
So Brooks Lennon, 20, Jalen Lindsay, 17, Daniel Landau scouting Giovanni Reina, the 15-year-old American midfielder for the NYCFC Academy.
What's happening there?
Soon to be sold to to Man City. Last week, Gio was brought into the NYCFC preseason camp along with 4 other Academy players. He is reportedly working on obtaining a European passport, but Patrick Vieira said on Friday that he is hopeful that Gio will choose to sign his first professional contract with NYCFC
So
instead.
he's not yet a homegrown player. That's interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
That's how it works, man.
Ooh, maybe promise him some first team minutes this year, and I'll watch your team. Russell Findlay is scouting Eric Palmer-Brown, 20-year-old American defender who just signed for Man City, but Russell's update, I'm adding drama today. Hot off the presses, says Russell. EPB was loaned to KV Kortrijk, who are currently 9th in the 16-team Belgian First Division. Apparently, EPB doesn't meet the work requirements to play in England, so this may end up being an extended loan.
Alrighty.
I'm just excited to watch EPB play consistent games for a professional team. He has been bounced around endlessly over the last few years.
And I'm excited to see how you watch him play consistent minutes.
There's got to be some, I'm sure there's some Kortrijk, that YouTube highlight channel.
All right.
Yeah, how about
sure.
that?
Why not?
I'll do some
I'm
research.
sure there is too.
Russell, look into it, please.
Mark Jones scouting Ryan Brewster, the 17-year-old English striker for Liverpool. After being stretchered off the field earlier this month during a Liverpool U23 match, Ryan Brewster has been ruled out for the remainder of the season following surgery on his ankle. Brewster took to Twitter to share that the operation was successful, to thank fans for the messages of support, and to assure them that he intends to come back stronger than ever.
All right, Ryan Brewster. Steve Renard is scouting Yuri Tielemans, the 20-year-old Belgian midfielder for Monaco. The 20 surprise is because I can't believe he's no longer a teenager.
Yep.
Steve says Tielemans returned to the Monaco first team, coming on in the 81st minute of a 3-1 win over Metz and the 63rd minute of a 3-2 loss to Lyon. He then went the full 90 in a 2-2 draw at Marseille. This time off doesn't seem to have helped his tendency. He was injured, right? That was why his time off. This time off doesn't seem to have helped his tendency toward what I perceive as mental lapses. He has a chance to cut out the MLS assist pass on Marseille's first, which was admittedly kind of fluky, but he was busy calling for offside. He was caught in no man's land on the Payet free kick that was headed in by Germain for Marseille's second. Then he seemed to switch off behind the play when his teammate Fabinho had the ball and headed for the goal to tie it up. That's weird. I don't think of Tielemans as that kind of player.
But it is something we've seen since that move to Monaco. It sounds like in the reports we've gotten from Steve in the past, it was a little bit like, oh, he did this, but then he was out of the play for no reason, or he didn't try to catch up to be involved in that goal-scoring move.
Maybe he's got some regrets about that move.
Maybe. Or maybe it's just he's a youngster and still finding his way, Daryl.
Right.
Josh Staley scouting Sergio Gomez, 17-year-old Spanish attacking midfielder for Barcelona's academy. For now, maybe. But Dortmund are expected to sign the 17-year-old attacking midfielder to a 4.5-year contract after the German club agreed to pay his €3 million release clause from Barcelona's academy. I almost unintentionally said Barcelona.
You almost unintentionally pronounced it correctly.
Indeed. Reportedly, he just needs to pass his medical on Monday for the move to be made official. Sergio is thought to be one of the brighter stars in Barcelona's famed La Masia, and mostly plays midfield, though he can also play on the wing and is known for having a brilliant left foot, great vision, and a high degree of free kick accuracy. Dortmund have reportedly promised Sergio Gomez first team minutes and want him in the squad as soon as possible.
It's another Jadon Sancho move, isn't it? It's like a team that weren't going to give a talented youngster minutes, and Dortmund are like, hey, come play for us.
Yep.
Ryan Marzak is scouting Piano Sisto, the 22-year-old Danish winger for Celta Vigo. Ryan says Piano Sisto started the last 2 matches for Celta, helped them secure an important 6 points in the chase for European football. Celta's attacking trident of Maxi Gomez, Iago Aspas, and Sisto, Gas, G-A-S?
Gomez, Aspas and Sisto.
Got it. Are being touted as the next big attacking trio in La Liga and are drawing comparisons to BBC and MSN. Ryan adds that he saw an article discussing why Southampton should make a move for Sisto, which means it's likely we're about to start seeing his name more frequently included in the rumour mill. I like the idea of Gas, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Guy Jedweb scouting Serge Gnabry, 22-year-old German attacker on loan at Hoffenheim from Bayern Munich. Gnabry put in a statement performance in Hoffenheim's match at his parent club Bayern Munich because Germany doesn't have the rules about if you're on loan, you can't play against your host club. In the second minute, he beat Joshua Kimmich to a ball and was taken down for a penalty. Gnabry took the penalty, which Bayern keeper Ulrich, I don't know his full name, but Ulrich, was able to block before Mark Uth finished it off. 10 minutes later, Gnabry drifted into a little space at the top of the box and drilled the ball into the bottom corner. Throughout the first half, his pace and movement off the ball were incisive. Unfortunately, Julian Nagelsmann's tactical plan quickly fell apart defensively, and Bayern ended up winning 5-2. In the post-match, Bayern coach Jupp Heynckes called Gnabry a great talent, but cited much room for improvement due to his inexperience.
He's just bitter. Dylan Wirtz is scouting Kai Havertz, the 18-year-old German midfielder for Bayer Leverkusen. For the second straight game, Kai did not start. They're saving him for the World Cup. Instead, he came off the bench in the 82nd of Leverkusen's 2-0 win over Mainz. Dylan hasn't been able to find any stories on why Kai lost his starting spot, but it seems as though Lucas Alario, a more traditional forward/winger, has taken over the role. Dylan is worried that Kai's versatility is a bit of a problem in that he can play several positions and the manager isn't sure where to start him, so he sits him instead. I say he's just a teenager, so they're just resting him and not burning him out too early.
That could be. Kai Havertz. Marcus Goodrich scouting Shiloh Tracy, 19-year-old English right-winger for Tottenham. Tracy scored once and provided an assist in Tottenham's win over Benfica in the U23 Premier League International Cup. We
still haven't looked it up.
Tracy, it's like every major club is playing it. We still don't know. Tracy probably played one of his better games this year and was very pacey and put in a great deal of work while pressing throughout the game.
Thank you to Connor, John, Daniel, Russell, Mark, Steve, Josh, Ryan, Guy, Dylan and Marcus for today's scouting report.
That's good reading, Daryl.
I've been assigning more and more players. If you are waiting for your player, please go to No, that's to sign up. Please email me, Daryl@TotalSoccerShow.com, DARYL. Don't email me about Chicago things, that's for Taylor. Let me know that you are waiting for your player. I will get your player to you, I promise.
Second City is great.
Final thing before we finish, I just want to remind people that we do our other show, Top Draw Soccer Show.
We do.
And I want to double remind people that last week's episode was excellent. It was Taylor and Travis talking about development academies, why they exist, what the pros are, what the cons are.
To clarify, I say it was because I thought Travis was particularly excellent in that episode.
Well, Travis knows this stuff and we're learning this stuff, right? That's kind of the relationship. So if you haven't subscribed to the Top Draw Soccer Show, please go find it in iTunes or wherever else you listen. All one word, Top Draw Soccer Show, word on its own. Subscribe to that show. You'll be supporting the Total Soccer Show and you'll be getting some really good audio content about the future of American soccer. All that remains to say is, Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, pal.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with maybe some more transfer news, but definitely some listener questions.